So just before I get into John Landis's schlock, this is going to be the first video and start of my brilliant plan for 2025, which is to improve this YouTube channel, I guess, because I won't be monetized. If I'm monetized at this point, I'm recording this in November, but if I'm monetized by January, yay, awesome. If I'm not, well, that's the goal for this year. I really want to push things. I really want to do cool stuff, and this is going to be a cool thing. This is going to be called Previously on Arrow video, which is just like the old thing I did, the Shuddermania in 2019. No, not 2019. Years and years ago. Back when I was doing a weekly podcast, Friday Night Fright. I want to get back that feel. I don't necessarily want to do a full podcast again, but I like the idea of doing I suppose you can say content, but just stuff, different things to stretch me creatively between movies. And it's going to start the Previously on Arrow video. It's going to start with Schlock, which is, this is not a good movie by any stretch of imagination. Now I want to preface that by saying that I am a little biased because I really don't like John Landis. You know, all that stuff that's come out about Twilight Zone, the movie, and just generally the way he acts, and also his just awful song mats. I mean, Jesus Christ, the pair of them. And I also think he's a little overrated. Now I'm going to say that I do like An American Werewolf in London because, you know, it's really good. And I like Trading Places, but I don't know that I would necessarily give him that much credit because you look at the cast he got, and it seems to be a case of hits at the right moment he hit with those movies, and they both really worked. But apart from that, I can't say I'm a big fan of his cinema sort of work. And having watched Schlock on Arrow TV, I don't think I'm particularly unwarranted in that viewpoint because this is not a good movie. Now, did I enjoy it? Yes, I did actually enjoy this, but it ain't a good movie. And I didn't enjoy it particularly because of what was there. It's more basically, so to really go into it, Schlock is just nonsense. There's no plot, there's no story, there's no real sense of comic timing. The enjoyment I got out of it was just watching the equivalent of a student movie with a real budget. And it's a complete mess. It's a bit like Steven Spielberg's 1941, the one with Dan Aykroyd and Belushi and the war stuff, where it's like Spielberg tried to do a comedy, but at that point he just wasn't very good at comedies. And, you know, watching this is just, John Landis is not very good at the sort of parody stuff, where clearly this is parodying like the B and C list movies, like stuff like The Blob starring Steve McQueen and other things of that nature, and King Kong obviously. But it's just not funny. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say there weren't a few funny moments, because there were, but it's just, in general, it's like he's trying to do something similar to like the airplane model, where it's really frenetic and there's 1,000 gags a minute. But John, you're just not that funny, mate. I'm sorry, but it's just true. And I got to add also that I enjoy Trading Places, but I don't think Trading Places is very funny. I never found it funny. I enjoy it as a movie, but I don't think it doesn't make me laugh particularly. It's more like sensible chuckles, I guess you can say. And this one, there's a couple bits which amuse, but by and large, like, there ain't enough here. So, what do I actually think of it? One, I think it's not very good. Technically, not very good. The acting's not very good. The jokes aren't very good. The comic timing's not very good. The visuals aren't very good. It seems to be very much like, hey, remember 2000, like, memories from South Park? You remember 2001? Oh, I remember. Or stuff like Kong, or, you know, frigging The Blob starring Steve McQueen again. And it seems to be falling in that regard of sort of like, hey, here's a reference you'll get. And if you get reference, you'll like 2001 stuff, which is always moving. So like, yeah, John, we get it. But you're not framing this as good as Kubrick did. Yours is very amateurish. And I'm speaking as someone who makes very amateurish movies. But like, there ain't nothing. Like, now, so am I criticizing the movie? Am I criticizing Arrow for having on a streaming platform? No, I'm not, because, you know, it's a curio. It's an interesting part. I I don't particularly care for him, but it's an interesting part of the celebrated director's like movie history. It's one of his earlier movies, and it's unique, I guess. But it just ain't very good, and it's it's no Microwave Madness, where Microwave Madness goes so crazy, it's so bad that it becomes really enjoyable. Like I said, I did get some enjoyment out of this, but I was yawning at the end. So not a great start to previously on Arrow Video, but what can you do? Hopefully tomorrow's movie will be a bit better. And we're back with episode 3! Episode 3 of Previously on Arrow Video. And this episode is a bit of a cheat one because this is not actually on the Arrow Video player. It's not on it in November when I'm recording this, and it's probably not on it in January when you're watching it. But you can pick this one up on 4K, and it's Brian De Palma, so if you can find a copy of it, I would recommend it. Which actually makes you probably wonder why I've listened to the rest of this video. Well, you have to listen to the rest of this video because it's me doing it, and you want to listen to me talk about Brian De Palma movies, because Brian De Palma is one of my favourite directors. Anyway, Obsession is not the best Brian De Palma movie. Now, obviously, that's something you probably already knew, because his best movies are the ones which are shouted out across the stars, and in my case, I actually think Blowout is his best movie, and Obsession is not his best movie. The problem I find with this movie is not as bad because it's not, because even lesser De Palma is still fantastic. No, the thing about this movie is it's not a horror movie. Now, not all Brian De Palma movies are horror movies. Scarface obviously isn't a horror movie despite having horror movie elements. It's a crime movie. But I would say his best movies are horror movies. Whether it's something like Carrie, or something like Pieces, what I'm talking about, Pieces, or something like Blowout, or even Sisters. He's very good horror movies. Now, this is a horror movie, sort of. It's a psychological horror movie, which is very Hitchcockian, which of course it is, because it's very, very similar to Vertigo in tone. And in fact, at points it seems like Brian De Palma thought, hey, I can redo Vertigo and do it in a modern setting, obviously in the 70s, and with Cliff Robertson and John Lithgow, and I can do it and it'll be great. And Brian De Palma added his numerous touches onto it, which is why this movie is really weird, and why there's a breathtakingly bizarre incest subtext to it, which apparently at one point wasn't even subtext, it was just text, but the studio got cold feet about it, and they're like, you can't have that in the movie. And sorry, I'm spoiling shit out of the movie, whatever. But that's De Palma for you. De Palma is a weird cat, and he makes interesting movies, although the problem I find for this is that, because it's psychological horror, how I'll phrase this, Cliff Robertson, I won't say he's bad in this, because he's not, but what I will say is he is fighting the material in ways that John Lithgow and female lead, sorry, I can't remember her name, are not fighting material. He is fighting every step of the way. He delivers a very mannered, measured performance, but it means that you don't really get much out of him, and he's the main character, so you spend all of his time, all our time with him, and he isn't really giving us, it's very much like De Niro in Heat, but De Niro in Heat was playing, he was half moving, Al Pacino's half movie, so you got the quiet and subdued, and then got manic and over the top, but in this movie you just get quiet and subdued, and De Palma, not that his performances are necessarily always hammy, but he does venture, his movies do work best when there's slightly weird quality to performance, and that is not here in Cliff Robertson's acting at all. And also the fact that it's, because it's so clearly an attempt to make a Hitchcockian movie, there's elements which are really, really good, and there's a couple of trademark awesome one-take De Palma sequences, those long shots, and those cool party scenes and stuff like that, but I don't know, it feels slightly sarcastic, to be honest. Like, De Palma's like, I mean, I read about this about De Palma, that he wasn't necessarily someone even wanting to make horror movies or psychological horror movies, but it was a way to make his name, and hey, I'm not knocking it at all, because he made some great ones, but this doesn't seem like he particularly gives a shit about the characters or material, and it seems, I won't say lazy's the wrong word, because I don't think any director's lazy. You can't make a movie if you're lazy, but I do think this film feels like lesser De Palma. You know, like this is a guy who is an amazing visual director and with performances and creating awesome set pieces, but nothing in this movie really rivals the amazing scene in Sisters, where you get like the voyeurism and you get like the reporter seeing murder and them covering up murder and she's trying to get police involved, and you get those split screens, and you don't really get that sense here. It seems to be a mix between sarcastic and a sincere attempt to do a Hitchcock style movie, but it doesn't entirely work, but it's still very good. Like Lesser Department is still a very, very good movie, so I would recommend this if you can find it. It's not his best movie, but it's a very good movie. Yeah. Slumber Party Massacre is not the movie you think it's going to be based on posters. It is a interesting movie because it's not really a straight up parody, and it's not really a serious like movie. It's kind of both at the same time, I guess. It's not as fun as Tuck and Dale Must Die, or Must Fight Evil, whether Tuck and Dale are evil, whatever that movie's called. The one with Alan Tudyk. It's not as funny as that, but it's trying something similar. The only problem is, I say problem, not really problem. The only thing is that it's a sci-fi original, so it's not as visually interesting as this material might be, but in some ways that works because it's like there's this great scene in A Few Times Stupid Gesture where you say the art shouldn't fight the joke, and thinking in this case part of the reason this movie works is because the visuals aren't fighting what's going on, but at the same time it's visually a little flat, and part of me thinks that's because it's a sci-fi original, which makes me wonder why it's on the Arrow streaming service. But then you get to the last part of the movie, and it's genuinely pretty good. Like, the last act of the movie is actually very watchable, which is kind of crazy, because there's a period in the middle part of the movie where it's a bit flat, and it's not working the way it should be working, but then it starts working towards the end, which is not something I experience that much nowadays, because usually I find that most of movies that I see, the endings kind of suck. And this one, it's actually pretty good. So what would I rate this movie? I very much like this movie. I think it's generally good. It's better than you'd expect it to be. The acting's pretty good. Some of the key sequences aren't amazing, but they're okay. I don't know. It's sort of difficult to say, really, because I think it could be better. I think it's not quite as subversive as it wants to be. It's got a few cool moments in it. It's got a few good lines. It's got some good pace, and the ending's very good. But I think it's hamstrung by the fact that it's clearly a movie that's made for the Sci-Fi Channel, and I don't want to mock sci-fi because I like Kids vs Aliens on Shudder, and that's very similar, where it's like, here's the idea, here's what we want to do, here's what we're constrained to by budget and things like that. But on the other hand, I think this is very competent, and I think there's a lot to appreciate out of it. I think it's not as funny as it could be, not quite as clever as it could be, and I can't help but go back to the visuals. I know what I said about they're not fighting the material, but it's still a bit flat. I don't know. It's difficult with things like this, because I just have, with Arrow, I have expectations that it's going to be cult stuff which does something different or unique, and I feel like this is so close to being like genuinely great, and it's just not quite there. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's so close. I did enjoy watching it, and I would recommend it. You watch it, and I think it tries, and you have to give it that, but it's sort of, more I talk about, more I push down Mark, actually. But it's I've seen a lot of crap recently, and I do think this does not fall into that category of crap. It's, again, competent, it's well shot, it's paced reasonably well, apart from the midsection. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say. I don't know. I think Arrow creates higher expectations. Where like if it's going to go down in flames, it's going to go down in flames in an interesting way. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So there you go. Slump Pie Massacre. Enough sequels on Arrow, but maybe I'll catch them again at some point. But for now, I'll see you tomorrow for. I don't even know what next movie is, but I'll see you tomorrow. This is a very schizophrenic movie, by which I mean it's tonally inconsistent. I mean, the basic gist of the movie is it's called the Chew Factor, and it's been described as the Exorcist meets the Winter Olympics, which is kind of true in terms of it's very much about possession and demonic possession and the misuse of, in this, it's not really a Ouija board, of a board, and then someone gets possessed. And it does have the Winter Olympics side. And the start is a bit goofy. It's very much like the Aspen episode of South Park. But then the core of the movie is kind of serious and not very funny, but well shot and well acted. And then towards the end, it starts turning goofy again. And also, there's a weird voiceover. So, the movie's never sure at any point what it wants to be, and it doesn't commit. Like, I'd be fine if it wanted to be the whole movie won't be an Aspen style. You know, that episode of South Park where it's like a parody. If this movie won't be a parody of like the sort of snow capade, I guess you can say, movies where people a ski lodge and shenanigans happen, everyone's sleeping, everyone is, and the devil's involved, that'd be fine. Or if it wanted to be more serious, like The Exorcist, and take the material a bit more seriously, but be consistent with it, that'd be fine too. But when you're trying to do both, you're not going to succeed at either. And this movie doesn't entirely succeed. It's a movie of two halves, literally. The first quarter is kind of goofy and silly. The last quarter is goofy and silly. But the remaining half is serious. And it's not bad. This movie is not bad by any stretch of imagination. I actually thought parts of it, both aspects were really, really good. Parts of them, like some of the sequences, are actually very well constructed and genuinely tense. I mean, the fact that the characters weren't really that developed because, again, the broad aspect of the opening and the ending. But I mean, in general, they try, and it's an interesting premise. Like, the premise is probably the best thing about the movie because it's different. It goes back to that sort of aspect of the thing where, like, oh, you're in the middle of nowhere, it's snowed under, no one round, you're too far away for anyone to support you. So what do? The paranoia sets in. I mean, paranoia doesn't really say in this movie, but could in theory. It's a great premise for it. And I think fundamentally that's my problem with the movie. It feels like this movie is a first draft. I mean, it probably wasn't. It probably was multiple drafts, location and finance and stuff like that, but it feels like first draft, where, like, there's some great ideas in there, but they don't really do much with them. I think it's an admirable effort. No, I definitely think someone's sort of like, hey, yes, this was a great movie and made a lot of money, and I have a ski lodge location, let's go make a movie. And I'll never judge that too much because that's basically my first movie. I took what I had and I worked with it, and I worked to the logistics I had. And you do that as director and writer. You definitely do. And I gotta give them credit. Look, this movie's on Arrow Video. That's pretty fucking cool. And it's not a bad movie by any stretch of imagination. I mean, my thing with movies is I tend to hate on them more if I get bored. And this movie wasn't boring. It was interesting. There was stuff happening, and it tried. Don't be boring and try. Those are my two rules for movies, and this movie definitely tried. Did it succeed? Not entirely, but I'd rather something fail trying something rather than, like, succeed being generic shit. And this movie's not generic shit by any stretch of imagination. It's a bit batshit insane, and it takes a giant swing at the plate. And it's got some good moments. Like, again, some of the death sequences are generally good. Some of the effects are pretty good. The main bad guy is very, very over the top, but it's very amusing. And the stupidity of the devil, I'm going to say it's the devil, just fucking these kids at ski lodge, abandoned church. It's absolutely hilarious. And also the fact that, and I like it when there's Chekhov's gun stuff, like, but I can't liking this movie where once they're out of the bar, they're completely removed from everything. Because in Slumber Party Massacre, the 2001 one from yesterday, there was lots of like callbacks and payoffs, and it just got a bit silly because the movie felt like it ended and then continued, but this movie just ends and that's it. You're done. You're out. Bye. Although I wish I hated narration in this. It's stupid choice. I'm going to assume that's some sort of executive meddling and stuff like that because it's very fucking stupid. And it really pulls you out of the movie because there's no tension. You know? Now, yes, you can do a sort of thing with narration where it can be from the other side, but this movie just never felt like that was the case. So I think if you ditch the narration, you're probably being for a good shout. It's really, really bad. But other than that, I enjoyed this. I would like to see if there's any special features on this, so I might do that later on, but for now I would say this is, for my money, this is better than Slumber Party Massacre from yesterday. It is. So there you go. Continuing theme with Arrow Video movies which are clearly inspired by Exorcist, we have another movie clearly inspired by Exorcist called Beyond the Door. Not sure why that's the title, because apart from maybe Last Act, it has nothing to do with the movie whatsoever, but there you go. This movie, apparently Warner Brothers sued for it being too close to The Exorcist, but I would assume Paramount would sued because it's pretty goddamn close to Rosemary's Baby, if anything. Much more than The Exorcist. I mean, I guess maybe Last Act, which is set in a room, is similar to The Exorcist, but The Exorcist was about a kid possessed by a demon. Not a pregnant woman possessed by a demon, but her kids are also possessed by a demon, I guess, sometimes not. And then there's a guy, Dimitri, who looks like the doctor guy from Zombie Flesh Eaters, and it's all, to be honest, all gets a bit confusing at points because the possession stuff really gets in at the first, like, for the first part of the movie, and then it's there the rest of the movie, but it's most prominent during that point, and then the kids disappear. Maybe they had something going on. I was sort of tuned out, to be honest. Maybe they explain that, maybe they didn't, I don't know, but the Last Act is basically a guy, Robert, his wife Jessica is possessed by the devil, and her ex-boyfriend Dimitri, who should have died in a car wreck, but apparently the devil saved him because he wanted Jessica to be pregnant for some reason. I don't really understand, and I don't think the guys that made the movie really gave a particular shit over whether the story is logical or not, because this is a movie dripping in atmosphere more than anything. Although I do want to point out, like, I really just want to stress, this is not that much like The Exorcist. It doesn't feel like The Exorcist. It feels like just a demonic possession movie, which is very strange and very, like, international cinema coded, because it's one of those movies where they act like it's set in America, but these people they sound Americans as they've been dubbed, including the two kids who are clearly dubbed by adults in their at least early 20s, and that's been generous, because that little boy his voice sounds like a chain smoker in his mid-30s, and his sister, she sounds like an actress who's falling on some very, very, very hard times, and it's incredibly distracting when these kids are clearly mouthing dialogue and then adult voices are coming. It's just ridiculous. And by the way, like, maybe those two kids with their actual voices would have delivered, like, decent performances, but the adults who did the voices, my god, they were terrible. Absolutely fucking terrible. Like, shockingly bad. They did not seem to, I don't even think they were watching the footage. I think they just record this dialogue. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And to be honest, the acting ain't great. Dimitri, much like Zombie Flesh Eaters, that actor brings it up a bit, but this is not a movie for acting performances, people. Holy shit. And some of the special effects are cool. The green vomit is disgusting. Like, I know it's pea soup, but maybe it's just because the idea of pea soup makes me feel physically nauseous. I like some of the aesthetics and visuals of Peace. Again, I don't think the acting's very good. I don't think the director really gave a rat's ass about any of that. I think he is much more the visceral experience of it. But then the problem is, like, it's one thing I like about Pieces, which is a very similar movie in terms of the dubbing and the fake American aesthetic, Pieces embraces the medium and just goes full violent. This doesn't. It's quite tame. I mean, there's a bit of language and there's a bit of violence, but for the most part, it's pretty tame with what's actually going on. And I would have preferred, like, if they were going to make a pastiche on, like, The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, I prefer they made a really hardcore version, because this is just, apart from the green pea soup that spews out her mouth and then she eats it and then goes, oh, I'm eating my own vomit, which is pretty on those lines, if we're being honest. It ain't that. I mean, parts of it are really, really, really good, because obviously they've taken a page from Polanski and Friedkin and just thought we're going to make this we're going to make this a tiny bit harder, but nothing hits as hard as it does in The Exorcist, because again, the acting ain't there, and to be honest, the writing ain't there either. But it's watchable, and it's an interesting experience. Honestly, I would say the cheer factor, when that hit hard, that worked a lot better. This is a bit more tonally consistent, but it doesn't have the highs of cheer factor. It's kind of decent, I guess, overall. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but I'll definitely be looking for. I don't think it's anywhere near as spooky as J.D. tapes. But who knows? Maybe tomorrow's one, which is the wedding party, which I think is a Brian De Palma one. I say tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow on YouTube, but it'll be tomorrow on my Patreons. That's the point, actually. If you like patrons, subscribe to my Patreon, where you'll get all these videos early. But if you already subscribe to my Patreon, you already get this video early. Weird. Anyway, subscribe to my Patreon, because you'll get the Bubba Batch and Christmas thing early. Anyway, until next time, bye.